So earlier this last week, I finally managed to slay the Arbiter of Ash for the first time at the Burning Monolith in the Endgame maps on this cold concoction Pathfinder that I've been leveling over the past week or so. Originally, the character was supposed to be a poison build, that's why his name is Poison Popcat. But as I was leveling with this build, and as I was leveling with Pathfinder specifically, when I got my first ascension, I unlocked the concoction ability, and I was like, you know what? Shattering Concoction seems really good. I know that Pearl of Ice is really strong right now, and if I can manage to freeze and shatter enemies instantly with the flask, like the Concoction, then I feel like that would be an insane combo. So that's exactly what I did. I leveled up all the way from around like 20 to 30, all the way to maps with Shattering Concoction, and I have to say it was probably the smoothest and easiest leveling experience that I've had so far. Now I've hit endgame and I'm already at level 92. I'm 4 levels higher than my monk, which is level 88 whenever I stop playing him to choose a new class. And I've been having an absolute blast with this character. So for anyone who doesn't know what the whole concoction thing is, I'll go over that here in a sec. But basically, it's a really useful ability that lets us consume our flash charges. You see in the second line there, 10 out of 75 charges on use whenever we use the flask. But instead of using the flask, it's actually just consuming 3 charges instead. So whenever we use the ability, we throw it at enemies and it explodes. And it slowly uses these charges. But it doesn't use any mana. And I think that is a really important thing for why I find this class and this skill to be so appealing. Is that a lot of endgame characters will have very bad mana issues that they have to solve with either regen, using the thief ring, the emerald unique ring to get mana on hit, or doing it with pure fizz percent leech, or playing Chiola Monk, I guess. But uh, it's kind of hard to do that with certain characters. Like my Invoker Monk, I'm having an issue with mana regen and everything. I'd have to invest quite a lot into it. This character doesn't have to worry about it at all. And as you can see, the tooltip damage goes pretty insanely high. This is because we don't really have to worry about getting any damage on our bow or anything like that. What we have to worry about is skill levels. You'll notice that I'm using a level 17 support skill, buff skill here, 17 spirit, but then my Shattering Concoction is level 31. That's because we're getting 10 levels from our global modifiers as well as 1 level from the Cold Master support here for a total of a plus 11 to our Shattering Concoction. The way we're getting so many gym levels, the plus 10, is because of 2 pieces of gear, or I guess 3 technically. So we have Widow Hail here. This is a bow that doesn't have a lot of damage on it, but it gives a special modifier that says increased bonuses gained from equipped quiver. Now, it normally can only go from 150 to 50, or 150 to 250% bonuses, but since we got a corrupted version of it, it can go all the way to 265, and I've even seen some at like 280, 300 range, which would be crazy to get. But it is increasing this quiver's modifiers by 265%. That includes the +2 to all projectile skills. So it's going from +2 to +8. And then with that, we're also using an amulet with +2 to all projectile skills. So that goes to 10 total. Now, other things you might want to look for on your quiver are things like increased damage with bow skills, because I think it counts as a. I don't really know. I don't know if it really counts here, but it'll count towards your other things as well. And then crit hit chance, crit hit damage if you can get it. Added damage to attacks would be perfect. Sadly, mine rolled fire damage to attacks. Ideally, you'd want cold damage for this build, or if you're doing the lightning flask, you get lightning, etc., etc. Projectile speed helps the actual projectiles come out faster, but it's not like super necessary. Attack speed might be nice if you need that. But any bonuses here you have will be multiplied by a lot, and you mostly just want the projectile skills. Now we're using an evasion chest piece here, and an energy shield helmet. The reason we're doing that is because we're using these nodes on the skill tree. Subterfuge mask, you get evasion rating per one maximum energy shield on your helmet, so that's free evasion rating. And then exactly the opposite here with Spectral Ward, you gain maximum energy shield per 12 evasion on your equipped body armor. Since we have 1200, that's like 100 free ES. So both of these are really useful. You can run a hybrid ES energy shield if you want more energy shield. Personally, my old chest piece looked like this. Looked like this. Would put our ES almost by 500 up, so almost 2000, 2000, which would be nice. But I figured going more and evasion rating would be better for acrobatics, and I'm pretty much right. Goes from 68 to 59 if we don't use a pure evasion base. So evasion base is better if you want to go higher evasion and into acrobatics eventually. Ideally, you'd want to get one around 1600. This is actually on the low end, but I needed the spirit on it, which increased the cost a lot. Get good boots that have 30% movement speed. These ones are terrible, but they have 30% movement speed, so that's why we're using them. These gloves are pretty nutty. You want something with like cold damage to attacks or attack speed, something like that, maybe crit. I needed intelligence really badly, so that's why I got these. They also give me free accuracy and everything. As I said, the belt before, you want flash charge per second and then take care of any other attribute or resistance thing problems you're having, as well as life. Rings I'm using for rarity, life, resistances. Here we don't have rarity, but we have resistances and int. And then, of course, the amulet gives us a lot of rarity, energy shield. The armor roll's dead, but we get more spirit there, and then +2 proj. It's really hard to get right now there. That stat is worth a lot of money right now. And on your helmet, you just want to stack as much energy shield as possible. I've seen some go up to like 400, but personally 300 is the highest that I can get. We rolled a nice crit hit chance mod there, which is kind of cool. As well as some life and really nice resistances. But that's about it for the gear side of things. Now, this build won't be for everybody because we are basically just throwing one skill out for the most part, aside from when we're bossing. But it does act as a very, very good, fast, mobile clear build that we can kind of just spam flasks and move through the maps with ease without having to worry about too much. Now, the reason why I shifted to Concoction build instead of going the poison route like I originally planned was because Mathil released a video where he was going over his version of a Concoction build using the fulminating concoction, the thunder one, the lightning one. His was more suited for single target damage, and you can see him absolutely melt bosses in that video. My build is more suited towards mapping and being able to clear easily and safely. That's because whenever we throw Shatter Concoction, if it doesn't immediately kill enemies like that, let me see something that won't die instantly. Either way, if it doesn't kill instantly, like it's doing right now, like on these rares, it'll at least freeze them almost guaranteed on the first hit unless they're resistant or something like this. They're frozen. They can't attack us. Now that is super helpful for harder enemies and rares to keep them from moving and keep them from body blocking you. But as well as you being able to plan your next attack and plan your next movement. Freeze is probably the best ailment in the game right now for being safe and defensively as well. So I highly encourage people to try out a freeze build if they haven't already, if they're dying a lot of maps. This is super helpful. Now for our single target damage, we're going to be doing some different things. We actually do have some skills that we're using besides Cold Concoction. Cold Concoction throwing spam is basically just for maps, but whenever you get to a boss, you can't just kill them with throwing Concoction, sadly. Well, you probably can, actually. It depends on the boss. But to get more damage out for single target, we're using a couple of things. Firstly, we want to use Eye of Winter, because that applies a debuff called Critical Weakness, which makes it us more likely to critically hit the enemy. And since this build is scaling pretty much full crit damage and crit chance, we want as much crit chance as possible. You'll notice if we go down to our crit damage bonus, I don't really know why this is so high, but you can see it says 1400% offhand critical damage bonus and almost 400 on the main hand. I want to get that up to 400 for the main hand. I don't really know what the offhand crit damage bonus means because our offhand is a quiver, so that's a little confusing. But it does insane crit damage and it scales the damage like crazy, so we want to be critting a lot. The next thing we want are shocks. Shocks are going to be really hard to get. That's why we're using Voltaic Mark to basically let our Stonecaller arrow, which already has a high chance of shocking, have an even higher chance of shocking. Apply a 35% shock so that we can do a lot more increased damage to the enemy. Herald of Ice, however, is something that we're using purely for clear because it basically, whenever it's active, when we shatter an enemy with an attack hit, it'll cause an ice explosion that deals attack damage to surrounding enemies. So it's perfect for something like uh, Shattering Concoction, as it is an attack, and it does instantly freeze and then shatter something if it kills it. The other buffs that we're using are Ghost Dance, Alchemist Boon, and Wind Dancer. I wasn't using Alchemist Boon for a long time because I have this belt, and I found that this belt was really useful if you don't have enough spirit to run all these buffs. You can just put on this belt right here, Birthright Buckle, increases your flash charges gain twice on the modifiers, as well as giving reduced flash charges used. Really helpful item to have if you're doing this early on and you don't have enough spirit. Highly recommend using that. Now, Alchemist Boon gives us flash charges per second, 0.27 when we have the full quality. And then we can also get things like this belt implicit that gives charges per second, as well as things on the tree, like this one right here, zero point 0.1 charge per second, as well as this one here, that which we have anointed, 0.1 per second. Really useful for keeping our flash charges up. And I find Savoring to actually be the best one, but I can't afford to sock it into it right now on the tree. But basically, this helps us get as many flash charges per second as possible, so that when we throw our flasks, you'll see that it just naturally charges over time. Ideally, what we would want to get is 3 charges per second, because that would basically let us spam without problem and keep up the charges. But sadly, it's kind of hard to get. So the build isn't perfect. We do have the biggest weakness of this build is basically when we run out of flash charges, we're kind of just sitting there and waiting for them to come back up. So ideally, what you want to do is burst down bosses as fast as possible so you don't have to worry about it. But if you do end up needing to wait for the charge to come back up, it's kind of a pain in the ass. Um, but it is what it is. Now we're using Wind Dancer and Ghost Dance just for our energy shield and evasion rating buffs. So we can get high evasion rating, and then every time we dodge, actually, I think it's every time we get hit, right? Yeah, when we get hit, we can consume a Ghost Shroud to recover energy shield equal to 5% of our evasion. So that's really useful for regenerating our ES passively. Now, you probably want to do this without acrobatics so you can have a higher evasion rating in general. Like I was 20k, so 5% of 20k is a lot more than 5% of 7,000, but you know, you can kind of do whatever you want with that. I prefer going acrobatics for bosses since I was doing the Arbiter. That's why I have that going. Let's go into our passive tree real quick. I'm not going to take you through everything. We'll just go over the basics here. But basically, you want to grab the quiver bonuses here because that's like the whole damage value of our build. Get as much energy, shield, movement speed, evasion rating as you can. I needed a fuck ton of decks, so we went here, grab this and this. These are really useful for decks. Grab this for evasion rating if you're using pure evasion rating armor. Acrobatics if you have enough evasion rating to run it. Grab Herald skills because we're using Herald of Ice. We come down here and grab crit damage bonus, crit hit chance, and then as well as this for big crit damage bonus since we're a pure crit build pretty much. Grab it here, grab ES evasion here, grab all of these nodes. All of these are insane, gives you increased damage if you crit, and we're going to be critting about like half the time pretty much. I also got this nice emerald, time loss emerald for my brother, which is giving me attack damage, damage with bows, blast charges gained on notables. It's really, really strong for this kind of build. Then I come up here and I grab, since we're running a freeze build, I'm running Heavy Frost for hits ignore non-negative elemental resistances of frozen enemies, as well as 50% increased damage with hits against frozen enemies, which are both really useful. And that's about it for the tree. For the Ascendancy, of course, you go and grab Concoction. I highly recommend people test out which concoction they want to use. You don't have to go cold. You can adjust things. Do Poison, I hear, is really good. I haven't seen anyone try Ignite. That was my original plan, was do Poison and Ignite. Might do that later. I'm grabbing the 6 free passive skills here to let us branch out a bit further. And then also grabbing the Unaffected by Slows and the Movement Speed Penalty Reduce. You could actually go up here instead of here, or instead of down here. Grab the flash charges if that's useful to you. But I didn't think it was like that useful. Lastly, let's go over some supports for the skills, just because I missed that earlier. Mainly, we're going for stuff on our Shouting Concoction. So we're using Cold Infusion for extra cold damage, Cold Mastery to get +1 to skills, Long Shot because ideally you want to be staying far away, and having frozen enemies helps a lot with being able to stay far away from enemies for this bonus damage. Scatter Shot, so we throw 3 out instead of 1. Throwing 3 out is better for clear, and I'm not sure if they can shotgun. I'm assuming they can, but I have no idea. Don't take my word on that. And then Leverage because you gain 50% increased crit hit chance against immobilized enemies, which includes frozen, pinned, heavy stunned, or electrocuted. So when we freeze a boss, we get 50% increased crit hit chance against them. That's pretty strong. You could just replace that with just something that's purely more damage, though. We are using Stormcaller. We're basically just trying to get as much shock chance and shock magnitude and duration as we can here. Grab Cannibalism if you're having trouble supporting life. Life on kill is really useful. Using Magnified Effect, Precision for accuracy rating. I don't even know if I need it. And then Glaciation because I want to see if I can like chain freeze things with it. I don't know if that actually works or not. I'll take Mark. I don't have anything on it right now, but it's useful on its own. Using Barrage so that we can get basically 2 extra projectiles on our Stormcaller arrow to try and guarantee that shock. And then Eye of Winter deceleration, so it comes out slower. It hits more often. Technically, I kind of Arcane Tempo for cast speed on it, and Unleash so that we only have to cast every now and then, and we get 3 casts of it, helping proc those critical weakness hits better. You could also run things like Clarity of Vitality if you have enough Spirit. And then on my bow shot, I'm using Soul Thief for when we're low on mana for things. Splinter to help break armor for when I'm in multiplayer. Pulling Strike to help kill bosses if we run into that whole flask charge problem. And then Maim and Ice Bite just for a bit more damage and to slow enemies. That's about it for the build. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Let me know if you have any comments, questions in the comments, and then also like and subscribe if you want more videos. The next build I'm planning on doing is going to be either a Stormweaver, Mage, Bow User hybrid thing with Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder, stuff like that, or it's going to be a Bleed spell build with Blood Mage. Because we never used to be able to bleed with spells in PoE1, and it sounds super interesting, so I want to try to make something like that work. But either way, I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Yeah, that was a boss fight, alright. Okay, just kind of ignored the whole boss mechanic. Respawning at. Stay still for me. Thanks. Disgusting.